ladies and gentlemen, probably mostly gentlemen. It's UFC 112 prediction time, main card, starting with Kendall Grove, Mark Munoz. Had Kendall Grove not beaten Jake Rorschach, I would be probably very pro Munoz in this fight. I think I still am. I think he can out wrestle Kendall. Kendall's not really the kind of knockout artist. I mean, neither was Matt Hamill. Matt Hamill's got KO power. Munoz is undefeated at the weight class, of course, having beaten Nick Catone and Ryan Jensen. I think the Nick Catone fight was a harder fight than this one, stylistically. Grove, last time he beat a guy with actually really good wrestling credentials before the Jake Rorschach fight was Evan Tanner. I foresee Munoz kind of coming in there, doing his thing, taking him down, holding him down, working some ground and pound. I'm not gonna sub Kendall. I don't think, anyways. Well, I guess he could. He could if it's sub on his part. I think it's got to be brute force sub. Kendall, he can surprise us though. At times, Kendall comes out and looks like a really, really good fighter. His ground game looks crisp. His striking looks great. His clinch looks really good. So it's hit and miss. We get a good Kendall, we could see Kendall pull this fight off. We get a bad Kendall, he's in for a long night and another loss. Next fight, Terry Edom, Rafael dos Anjos. Very excited by this fight. Two guys with gas tanks that will go. Edom, I think, has the advantage on the feet. He's, I think, a better boxer. He's got the reach advantage, I think. I mean, he's taller by a good 4 inches. I assume this equates to some kind of a reach advantage. Dos Anjos is not a slouch on his feet, though. Edom is going to have to try and keep this off the ground, which is something he's not done in the past. That's been the problem. Edom's Achilles' weakness is basically your typical British thing of, they don't wrestle very well, which is not always true, but in this instance, reasonably true. I think Dos Anjos can take him down. Dos Anjos is very, very good on the ground. I think he can submit Edom. That's why I'm taking him by sub. As much as I think Terry Edom probably has a much brighter future in the UFC than Rafael dos Anjos, because dos Anjos, of course, every time he stepped up in competition has pretty much gotten his arse handed to him. See his fights with Tyson Griffin and Jeremy Stevens. Not so much the Stevens fight. He showed well in that fight, but still, he's coming off wins over Kyle Bradley, Rob Emerson. You know what? He didn't finish them, so I'm going to change it up. I'm going to say Dos Anjos by decision. But it will be an exciting fight. I believe this is a fight definitely to watch. And I like that it's on the main card. Matt Hughes, Renzo Gracie. Another chance for Hughes to beat a Gracie. Hughes' prime was in the perfect position to beat a Gracie. His wrestling was good. The Gracies don't have great stand-up, and he can pretty much neutralize their ground game. That being said, the Hughes we saw fight Matt Serra could be in trouble in this fight. He looked very lost on the feet, which Matt Hughes' stand-up's always been bad, but he hasn't necessarily looked lost. In the Matt Serra fight, he did look lost. Like, where am I? Why am I boxing with this guy? What do I do? He had a hard time taking Serra down. I think Renzo is a better wrestler than Serra, which could equate to some problems there. That being said, I still have to go with Hughes. I think this fight is similar to the Matt Serra fight, and despite looking terrible, he came through with that one. I think Serra is a better stand-up artist than Renzo. I think Renzo's stand-up is pretty weak. I mean, when we're talking about Renzo's best chance of winning being Sprawl and Brawl, there's probably not a great chance of him winning. And that's kind of what it comes down to. Hughes should win this. Unanimous decision. If he loses, expect a retirement speech because that would be ridiculous. I think he should have retired after the Matt Serra fight, to be quite honest. But that is what it is. Frankie Edgar, BJ Penn. Frankie Edgar needs to go down to featherweight. He's not big enough at 155. He is, he's a fantastic wrestler. He's got good stand-up. Ground game, I think his ground game still needs work. You look back at the Tyson Griffin fight. Griffin had him in some bad spots. He's got good heart, and he, has a weird ability to basically sit in a submission and not tap. But that in itself doesn't translate to good ground game. You're going up against BJ Penn. I've said it before. I don't. There's really no 155 matchups in the UFC I want to see from BJ Penn. I don't think there's any in general, unless he were to fight Shinya Aoki and basically agree to take Shinya Aoki down, because I don't really think Aoki could take him down. And on the feet, it would be a massacre. How do I see this fight? It depends on really. It depends on how BJ wants to approach this. Does he want to take Edgar down and tap him, which he could do? Does he want to stand and box Edgar up on the feet, which I think he could do, because I don't think Edgar can take him down. I mean, he's a better wrestler than Diego Sanchez or Kenny Florian, but he's a lot smaller than Diego, is what I think people kind of forget. Uh, at least they're not trying to hype this as the biggest challenge, kind of like the GSP Hardy fight was the biggest challenge of GSP's career. Just put that entirely in quotation marks, like quotation, 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 because it was ridiculous. Yeah, so I'm gonna go third round TKO stoppage, because I don't really know if Edgar will tap. I think he'll get pounded on, and he'll lose. And I don't really know what the solution is, because him going to 170, I'm not interested in seeing him fight GSP. I mean, you got an interesting fight with Alves, Fitch, or Koscheck, but that's about it. Next up, the main event of the evening: Anderson Silva, Damian Maia. Was looking forward to this fight when he's Vitor Belfort. Damian Maia does pose some issues to Anderson in the fact that he's quite willing to pull guard. He's the type of guy that it's very, very hard to keep off the ground with, because unlike a lot of BJJ black belts, he actually has a very good bottom game, which is something people kind of attribute to being a BJJ black belt. Kind of like I remember the Matt Serra GSP fights. Everyone saying, "Well, Serra could submit him from the bottom," and I kept saying, "No, he doesn't really have subs from the bottom." Damian Maia is a completely different story. The man is the best grappler in the middleweight division in the UFC, maybe the world. Someone's going to point out Jacare, and I would agree. I want to see Maia versus Jacare if that could ever happen. That would be interesting. I'm sure they've grappled at some point. I haven't seen it, but grappling and MMA are they're slightly different. We've seen it with like Frank Mir and Roberto Traven, for example. Traven was a better pure grappler, but in MMA it was Mir who won. So we'll see on that one. Maia, can he take down Anderson Silva? Quite possibly. He could put Anderson on his back. He has a very, very good double leg, which I think is the difference. People are comparing this fight to the Talis Latis fight. I think this is a better fight than the Talis Latis fight, because Maia is a better wrestler than Talis Latis is. I think he can be aggressive and take Anderson down. That being said, I look at this. I can't see Maia unseating Anderson. His chin is questionable after the Nate Marquardt fight. And yeah, that's really all that needs to be said when you're fighting Anderson, is if you have a questionable chin, it could be ugly for you. I'm taking Anderson. He's going to have to take this fight seriously, unlike the latest fight, I think, though. I don't think he can do quite what he did with latest. I don't think you can do that with most, like, any real legitimate contender. I think the latest title shot was a joke, and Anderson took it to be such. So Anderson, second, maybe third round stoppage. If Maia pulls off the upset, he pulls off the upset, and all the more to him. But I don't know. I don't know. If he does, then I think it may show a hole in Anderson's game finally. Anyways, since I got a little time left, let's look at the undercard real quick here. Taking Phil Davis over Alexander Gustafsson based on basically wrestling and ground game. Paul Taylor, John Gunderson taking John Gunderson basically for the same reasons. I think the fact that he's an underdog is a bit silly. Rick Story, Nico Shipshack, Rick Story for the same reasons. I'm taking a lot of wrestlers, aren't I? DeMarcus Johnson, I think, will tap out Brad Blackburn, actually, as weird as that is, because people seem to underrate DeMarcus Jones in the ground game when they fight him, and it lands them into problems. I think Blackburn might do that. Matt Veach versus Paul Kelly. Matt Veach via wrestling, basically. I'm really surprised people are thinking Paul Kelly's going to wrestle Matt Veach. That is a bit confusing. That's just me, though. And John Madsen over Mustafa El Turk again, basically via wrestling, which is unfortunately the dominant discipline in MMA. what are you gonna do? Anyways,